Over the 4th of July, so he gets out. Over the 4th of July holiday, Toddy and I were invited to the White House for a reception and an evening of patriotic music and fireworks, and I again drank to excess and behaved badly. My drinking seemed to be reaching a point where I would sporadically become unpredictable and then black out. Over the course of next fall and winter, I drank myself into near oblivion almost every night. And while there were no obvious signs of my dark secret at work, I was becoming moody and withdrawn. I would awaken in the morning, shaky from overindulgence and badly in need of a drink. Once again, my main goal on rising was to make it to the end of the day so I could resume drinking. Ashamed of myself, I walled out my friends and family, and alone and isolated, I became increasingly bitter at the injustice I thought life had dealt me. Within 6 or 8 weeks, I was fixing myself a large glass of wine in the middle of the night almost every night. By spring, I was fast on my way toward needing alcohol in my system at all times just to feel normal, and I frequently had to resort to the wine bottle an hour or so before I shaved each morning in order to steady my hands. Once at work, I tried to do all my paperwork and take care of everything that needed my signature in the mornings before the tremors returned. I then spent the rest of the day fixated on the thought of that first drink after I got home in the evening and in terror that I was going to be found out. By summer, I had exhausted my defenses against the encroachment of alcohol. I knew that I was in serious trouble and that despite my best efforts, I could not stop drinking on my own. I tried switching brands, drinking only beer or wine, drinking only after a certain time of day or no later than a certain time of day, or not drinking at all. No matter what new and feeble approach I seized on, I always seemed to wind up drunk and out of control, and my self-esteem plunged to such depths that I no longer considered myself fit company for friends or family. Toddy knew that I drank too much, but she had no idea of the extent of my drinking, and she tried to hold on to the illusion that my problem was depression, out of which I would eventually emerge. On the Monday before Labor Day of 1981, I stopped off at a liquor store on my way to work and bought a pint of vodka. I had never before drunk at work during the day, but I had now gotten to the point that I seriously questioned whether I could last 8 hours without a drink. On Monday and Tuesday, I took small drinks from my pint throughout the day, and no one at work seemed any the wiser. On Wednesday lunchtime, I went back to the same liquor store and purchased another pint, and by Friday evening, when I got ready to go home, all but a couple of ounces were gone. By now, I was leaving for work drunk every morning, staying drunk all day, and returning to my family drunk. I dreaded the weekend. I did not know which way to turn, but I knew I needed help badly. Somehow I managed to make it through Friday evening without giving myself away, and on Saturday morning, Toddy had a political meeting that kept her away from the house for most of the morning. While she was gone, I drank the better part of a half-gallon of wine. And when she returned home, she found me incoherent and back in bed. My drunken state was no longer a secret, and she immediately called the psychiatric unit at Bethesda Naval Hospital, where I had been a patient almost 2 years earlier. On the way to the hospital, Toddy, steering the car with one hand and wiping away tears with the other, asked me over and over why I was drunk and out of control on a Saturday morning. It was a fair question for which I had no answer, and when we got to the emergency room, the admitting doctor very wisely chose to separate us as soon as possible. Toddy was told that there was nothing more she could do to help, and she was sent home to await a prognosis on the miserable wretch she had married. I remained in isolation for another 2 days and went through the by now familiar shakes and cold sweats associated with withdrawal, and I was then assigned a bed in the main part of the unit. With alcohol out of my system, I actually began to feel pretty good physically. Except for that first 2 weeks of being alcohol free, I was able to sleep for no more than an hour or two a night. Mentally, however, I was a complete wreck and was convinced I would never be able to hold my head up. I also knew that I would never be able to drink again.